Hi, this is Izabel Florence, and you are listening to You Are Light podcast, a safe space where we talk about mental health and well-being. Hi, welcome to another solo episode. Today, we're going to talk about loneliness. It's a really interesting topic, and one that kind of makes me worried a little bit to approach, which is interesting. I think there is a connection that is made between loneliness and weakness that my ego doesn't like. So I guess there's a part of me that worries about telling people I have felt lonely before, because it would therefore mean that I have at some point felt inadequate, which is fascinating. So I'm going to start by talking about my experiences with loneliness and how it has affected my life. I remember as a kid, whenever I had friends around, I grew up in Brazil, I would spend all day outside playing in the streets. And so I would have friends over, play all day. And I remember every time they would leave, I would go to my bathroom and cry. And this is a memory that has never left me. That was loneliness. That was a very painful feeling. And something that I therefore became very scared of. But it took a turn because when I was 18, I moved country, and I had decided I would do that even before that. Because as a teenager, what I actually started feeling was the want to have my space. I craved the aloneness that as a child I was terrified of, which is so strange, right? I started feeling invaded too much, and I enjoyed my own company as a teenager. Part of the Brazilian culture is that groups of people are constantly together. You don't really see a lot of people spending a Sunday by themselves reading a book. People will be having barbecues and parties and be going to the park together, or, to the beach or whatever. It's not part of the culture to spend time by yourself. It's also part of the culture for families to spend a lot of time together, to go to restaurants together and have the longest meals. You'll be having lunch for 2 hours, 3 hours. And I only realized that that was a little bit different from the English culture when I moved here. So Izabel was a teenager, wanting more of her space. And I think it's part of being that age, right, as well. Like, you want your independence. You want to be left alone. You want to just be able to do whatever you want to do. And I struggled with being told what to do a little bit. So at 18, I moved to England by myself. And I had absolutely no idea how hard that would be, because in my naive young mind, I was independent. I was all I needed. I would be fine. But moving to a country where you're not immersed in the culture, you don't really understand the cultural aspects, you don't know anyone there, your connection with the language is not that great, right? So my English wasn't amazing. It's quite basic. It was difficult. It was very hard for a while. I remember moments where I would be going home and it was winter, and I hadn't also experienced how dark winter can feel like, because again, the temperature in Brazil doesn't get that low, and we have sunlight till later. It doesn't get dark at 3:30 in the afternoon. So experience all of these things at the same time as experiencing deep loneliness was very hard. So I remember walking home in the evenings and walking past people's houses and seeing a family have dinner around the table and just crying with this feeling of, oh God, I really want that connection. But at the same time, really appreciating my freedom. So it was a dichotomy within my mind and within my heart that I was feeling. That was the beginning of the feeling of loneliness for me. So first as a child, and then as a young adult as I moved away. But something happened to me when I came back from India that changed my mindset on loneliness. And it basically changed the rest of my life. So I had been living in England for a few years. I went to university and I started doing a lot of yoga and decided to go to India to study yoga. I had started studying it in England, but I am a very impulsive person who kind of just wants to fully immerse myself in what I am interested in. So I just thought, where should I go if I want to really experience this philosophy fully, where it's originated, right? So I just decided to go to India. It was an extremely life-changing experience. And when I came back, I was visiting my family and I was in Brazil, in São Paulo, where I'm from, in this concrete jungle, right? And it was Shiva's birthday and I decided to do a ritual, to meditate for a really long time, to spend time drumming. I had a little drum that I had bought in India that I brought with me, just lighting sage and meditating and singing and dancing and moving my body, doing yoga. And so I did this ritual and I had a moment of deep clarity that changed my mindset on loneliness for the rest of my life. I was sitting and I had big pots with big plants around me. And as I was drumming and singing, I saw this green energy going from my body to the plants, and it was a circle. So I was part of this circle and the plants were part of this circle. It was kind of like a vortex of green energy connecting me to all of these plants. And from that moment forward, I didn't feel that pain that I have felt as a child and that I have felt as a young adult ever again, because it changed my perception of loneliness and it changed my perception on my state of being in this earth. I had spent a lot of time studying the yogic philosophy and studying Buddhism and Hinduism for a while. And this experience made something that I had read a lot but hadn't experienced before real, which was the understanding that I wasn't by myself in this earth, that I was actually part of something much greater. This feeling of understanding that I am so connected in a way that is understandable by not only my consciousness now after this ritual, but that had been there all along, understood by my subconscious self. It changed everything. It made me realize that just having a plant in my home could bring me that comfort of not being alone. That walking down the streets, even in the busiest part of London, just by seeing an animal, a tree, a beautiful leaf of grass shooting from the ground up, meant that I wasn't alone, that there was so much more that was making me connected to others in this earth. And this brings my attention to the fact that we as a society are now seemingly more connected than ever. I can pick up my phone and call my family in Brazil and see them on FaceTime very quickly. I can message someone I love very easily. We have all the social media where we can make connections with hundreds of people, thousands of people. Yet we are more alone than we have ever been. Part of why that is we have lost our connection to a more powerful source. Religion has shifted a lot. Spirituality is kind of growing now, but still we are in a society that praises fame and money and things and lands rather than connection, not only to those in this earth, but to higher powers, to higher beings. This lack of connection to a higher power leaves us feeling very, very lonely, leaves us feeling lost, and it's a very sad reality. You know, we don't pray anymore. We don't connect to gods and goddesses. We don't tell each other stories of myths. So I think that's a big thing to take into consideration. How much can you connect to the power above you? And that can mean so many different things to different people. It can be a god to someone. It can be the universe to someone else. It can be Mother Nature to someone else. But just by understanding that even scientifically we are part of everything, that energy doesn't dissipate, it doesn't die, it flows, it moves. So the energy that is present in a plant is part of the energy that's present in us. The energy in our food can feed the energy within us. All of this is connected. When you walk into a room, you can sense the energy in that room. And that's because you are connected to everything around you in an intuition level, in a subconscious level. So maybe choosing to focus on these higher powers can benefit us immensely. And maybe taking some time to go for a walk in nature can also make a huge impact in how we feel about opposition in this world. We also need to understand that biologically we are made to fear being rejected and being alone. We as human beings are very weak in the sense of how fast we are, how strong we are. So our power is in the community, is in being together and working together. If you are rejected from your tribe, you might die of hunger, or you might die by being attacked by an animal. If you are with your tribe, you will be safe. You'll be able to build shelter with them. You'll be able to get your food with them. You'll be able to protect each other. We're the only species also that are so vulnerable when we're born. We have to be taken care of because all we do as babies is cry and poo and wee and sleep and eat. So we definitely need that tribe to stay alive. We need the people around us to stay alive. So biologically, we have been made to fear loneliness. But our Western culture focuses on the individual rather than the community. We have now started living by ourselves. We've started to be told that the more you own as an individual, the more praised you will be. So there's a big contradiction that we believe we should own a lot of stuff and we should be independent and we should be powerful. That those are the values that we should seek, beauty and money and fame, when actually connection is the thing that our biology is seeking. So then it makes sense why so many people that are very famous, very beautiful, very rich, very successful can also be deeply depressed. And it makes sense why loneliness feels so viscerally painful. Because it's protecting us. That pain is protecting us. But when we understand this, we understand that it's universal to feel lonely. It's an experience we all have felt. So you are not lonely in the feeling of loneliness. And it is not a sign of weakness. It's just a sign that you're a human being. Being alone doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It can also mean you value yourself enough to make a choice to wait for the right connections or to only accept the right connections. Sometimes we feel loneliness and what we want is to surround ourselves with people, but you can feel deeply alone while still surrounded by people. So it's not about being with people. It's about feeling connected to the right people. It's such a fascinating subject that I don't think I'll be able to say everything I want to say in one episode again. So next episode will be about loneliness again. And we can talk about the things we can do to actually connect with other people when we want to, because nowadays you have to be proactive about it. I want to talk about the fact that the most important friend in your life is yourself. That's the relationship you need to focus on the most. And I want to talk about perfectionism, because a lot of us go into friendships and relationships expecting perfection, and that will only disappoint us. Oh, and there's so much more to talk about. There's so much to talk about when it comes to loneliness. During the pandemic, I spent a lot of time by myself. I lived by myself. And so I got the chance to really dive deep into this subject, not only in my mind, but physically. So I have so much to say when it comes to loneliness, because I feel like I've learned a lot in the past 12 years. So that's it for today. Make sure you connect with some nature this week, and try to remember that feeling lonely is just part of being human, and that you're not alone in that feeling. We all experience it, and it's not weakness. It's survival. It's protection. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. All the links are written down on the show notes, as well as resources for anyone struggling with their mental health. Don't forget to subscribe so you're notified when we release new episodes. Also, feel free to share our podcast with your friends and family. And if you'd like to get involved, explore our content, or support our work, visiting our website www.yourlight.earth. That's yourlight.earth. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at u.r.light. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.